Hello, everyone. It's Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland Watchlist here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network. And this is my weekly show where my guests and I play a little movie roulette from my extremely obnoxious, large, and random movie watch list. And joining me is Chris Roberts for a second time on the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
I'm glad to be here.
And last time we had a short film about the Grand Canyon, and now we have the 1917 film Her Torpedoed Love, which is a short form comedy. Um, this wound up on my list because I went through the early years of film and took I found some websites where these are the top films. I'm like, this was one of those from 1917. So, but to give a little bit of background, which I don't have a whole lot, this is directed by Frank Griffin, starring Louise Fazenda and Ford Sterling. And basic gist of this is a obnoxiously long synopsis, but we're going to run through it real quick. A young woman works as a cook as the sole means of supporting herself and her husband, who, because of the nature of his profession, only works one day a year. She is unaware that her wealthy, aging, and gout-ridden employer, Philip No Brains, has left her everything in his will. No Brains' crooked butler, Reginald Scuttle, does learn about the will. To get No Brain's money, Scuttle plans on getting rid of both No Brains and the girl's husband so that he can enter into what only he would know is a fake marriage with her so he can get the money. So, fun names along the way. Scuttle, No Brains, fun stuff like that. But I guess, Chris, what are your general thoughts here on Her Torpedoed Love?
Now, listening to you go over the synopsis of this movie, I mean, this movie covers so much ground in about 20 minutes.
Yep.
It is insane how fast, how quickly paced this movie is. I
Mhm.
remember I was watching it about every 5 minutes, and it's only 20 minutes long. Every five
Yeah.
minutes, I'm like, it's still going. Like there's still more. How is this happening? How does it keep going?
Which and it's one of those kinds of ridiculous setups and really leaning into like nefarious butler. And I think Ford Sterling is a lot of fun as the butler because like every facial expression this guy makes is like this guy is 100% up to no good and nobody should trust this man ever. And it's fun seeing like wild kind of setups like this. This is obviously not taking itself too seriously. And then, you got to give enough space for it to go into some crazy physical slapstick comedy sequences because like that was humor back then because it's a silent film and you can't really leverage a whole lot outside of that for sure.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it's one thing I got to say. The stunts were actually impressive because there is no
Yeah.
CGI.
No.
It's just literally them jumping onto a moving vehicle. There's no
Mhm.
tricks to the camera, except for the one scene where I think there was like I must have missed that. I must have blinked. It looked like there was a car in the air at one point, and they're
Yes.
fighting on top of it, and it even ends on a car chase. Which it is.
Mhm.
I wasn't sure when you gave me this movie to watch. I wasn't sure if this was a comedy. I read nothing before going into it. I was like, I'm
Mhm.
just gonna turn it on, let it wash over me, and see what happens. And at first, I thought, oh, it's gonna be like a drama, a mystery, a thriller, and then it just goes into the absurd so
Yep.
fast. And the I was you always sort of you ask one too many questions of this movie, it starts getting more even more ridiculous. Like he's
Yes.
okay. His plot is the butler, who's could be the main character, I guess, is that he's trying to get the inheritance, and by
Yep.
doing this, he has to first kill the owner, the employer.
Yep.
Then he has to also, at the same time, kill the husband of the cook who's going to receive this money,
Yep.
and get married before the deaths happen. So his plan is, I'm going to send them both out on a naval voyage in an area full of pirates that have submarines that will then sink all their ships. Now, you got to say to yourself, okay, that means he's going to kill not only the two of them, but the entire ship. And the
Yep.
captain isn't like, yeah, we know. He sent them a telegram saying this place is full of pirates with torpedoes. We can't go in there. And he's like, yeah, we're still going to go. So it's like even the captain knows this is dangerous waters. Yeah, he's still going. He's taking his crew out there. Like there's this complete abandon when it comes to
Yep.
the safety of his crew. And but it's not meant to have those extra questions asked. It's just let's just watch the ridiculousness unfold because this was entertainment at that time.
Which, and that's the big thing with this film. Like you mentioned, it's like we're asking the real questions here. But like, is that the most efficient, easiest way that he could kill these two people? Is to stage a whole entire naval attack by pirates with submarines and torpedoes out in the middle of the ocean? But it's ridiculous enough to put in a movie and then to name it her Torpedoed Love. So I feel like there was some kind of idea of like we wanted to have like these ideas thrown in there and they kind of like hodgepodge the plot around it. Because that's definitely the vibe that I got from this for
I
sure.
I do think this is like the Scrabble bag of plots. Like they put a bunch
Yep.
of different ideas, threw it in a bag, and pulled 7 ideas out, and they said, "Let's make a movie about this." I mean, I was just thinking, just as you were talking too, like there's a part with the husband, the ship sinks, I guess, or he falls off the ship. He swims back to shore days later, I guess. It's been some time because they're getting married now. Fastest engagement I've ever seen. And he shows up in a military uniform. Like, how did he join the army at some point? Like, I I don't understand how all these pieces fit together, but it's a very simple plot, but it gets very convoluted around the details of that plot.
Because like at the end of the day, this butler's just trying to swindle this woman out of money. But there, instead of point A to point B, there's A to Z and 24 stops along the way of trying to get to that point. And it's basically all leads up to this like big, like I've watched a decent amount of comedies from this era at this point, and so many of them are just ridiculousness up until, well, we got 5 minutes left. Let's just do a giant slapstick parade of ridiculousness. And that's exactly what this film leads up to. You get this crazy car chase, you get all these stunts, these um effects and stuff like that. And slapstick is what you can do. It's not like you can use dialogue and throw sarcasm unless you're leveraging the title cards and stuff like that. Obviously, it has absurdist elements of just how ridiculous the story is. And if you put yourself into this story, you're just like, now what now? What are you doing? And you just kind of have to laugh at like this butler's like, I'm gonna get this money and I know exactly how. Pirates and torpedoes. And it's just like there's like at least 1,000 other ways that they could have died in like normal house ways that you didn't need to send them off into the middle of the ocean to, kill them this way. But that's where this butler's brain went.
Yeah,
And
the employer was a good week away from dying anyway. I mean, he was the employer. He just had to set like a make the guy trip down the stairs. And there's so many other ways to kill the guy, and yeah, he just took none of them.
he just didn't want to wait that week, Chris. He just couldn't wait that week.
But I do love the fact that the plot involves changing the grammar of a letter. Like
Mhm.
all the steps of the plot to make it work, he'd intercept the telegram and add a word or add a sentence, and nobody notices the change of handwriting.
And
One thing you mentioned the title cards and
yeah,
the obviously you're watching them, they're emoting a lot. These guys could in this day and age would be doing a lot of like emotion capture for animation or something because
yeah.
it's all in the face. But there's one title card that pops up about 2/3 of the way, and it surprised me a little bit. So this is after they're getting married. She's realizing she's got all this money now, right? And the title card constantly goes, "Don't worry, Daddy will take care of the money." My first thought was, when did the word "daddy" start getting used in common vernacular that way? Because I would never have expected that.
It's so weird seeing something like that in 2025 because the connotation of like daddy and mommy are completely different thing in our society today that just comes off really weird and
Super weird.
super weird. And like, was it weird for that period? It was probably just like, don't worry, your husband will take care of the money. And it's just like that kind of thing. But like, no, it's an interesting point watching old films like this in vernacular. It's just like, you want to make that joke today because that just has a whole other kind of vibe to what's going on here. But no, the more I think about this film, this makes no sense. Like absolutely none of it. And I feel like this is just like it has a crazy concept, and I think there's a lot that you can do with it. I just felt like Griffin just went with all of the most ridiculous things that they could possibly think of. Because like if you made like a story like this today, it's like he's slowly poisoning them, and like you're like doing all these subtle things, and it's like a nefarious butler who's just like mustache twirling. Now it's just like torpedoes, pirates. This is the best idea come up with. But I appreciated Sterling. I thought had a fun performance, and it's a crazy enough of idea to make some excuses to have some crazy slapstick comedy. And for a movie that's like a little over 20 minutes, you don't need to expect much more than that, do you? To be perfectly honest. What was interesting though was the version that I watched on YouTube had the wildest music choices. Like it was just like, why'd you pick this music to put into this movie? Like some of it made sense and felt like that like old timey kind of
Yeah.
like rompy kind of music, and then other ones I'm just like, I don't understand why you put this type of music in here. And that's always like a side note when you watch old films like this. I have a fun little story. I remember watching Nosferatu in a cinema class in high school, like the original
Hmm.
Nosferatu, and this special edition DVD had a death metal band who made a whole original score for the movie.
Wow.
And we only listened to some of it because like my teacher really didn't want to be sitting there listening to that music the whole entire time. But it was a very interesting like vibe that it brought to it. But like that's what like music can be so much at this point. And like at this point, they didn't have music that's synchronized with the films. You're just sitting there for 20 minutes in silence, and I guess people laughing. Hopefully people were laughing. And
Well, you occasionally have that small. Occasionally, there's like a small band or small orchestra in the
yeah.
front to play music with it. I would love to see someone start a YouTube channel where they take these public domain silent films and add audio to them,
Mhm.
and redevelop them that way. Keep the same black and white. Don't change
Mhm.
the video, but like you've seen those scenes of like bad lip reading. I want to
Yeah.
see that on silent films going forward.
Well, I think we came up with a great idea. If anybody is doing this or starts doing this after this, we want some credit here.
Yes.
But no, it would just be like boing and like people making like sounds in the background, and like that would be a fun time. And I think this is where they should start. We nominate her Torpedoed Love to get this treatment of everybody goes in and makes their own like sounds and everything to go with this. But I guess Chris, do you have any other thoughts about the
Yeah.
film?
Just one quick thought. Like I told you, I went to the movie blind. Did not read
Mhm.
up on it. Had no idea what
Yeah.
the plot was. And when I saw Torpedo Love, I thought it was like, oh, he's gonna like destroy her love relationship or whatever. But I was not expecting actual
Literal.
torpedoes
Yep.
and a murder plot involving the deaths of an entire ship full of people.
Comedy.
That's comedy.
Com-
Comedy and tragedy are so close.
yep. Just, sacrificial lambs, a whole entire ship worth of people. We needed to get this gag though. And this just feels like it's part of that. It was a system back then where it's like we have to put out how many movies a week? And
Yeah.
it's just like pump this stuff out. And they certainly came up with a crazy concept here for sure.
As I said earlier, the most impressive thing of these movies is always the stunts
Yes,
because
100%.
it was an entirely different world back then when it came to the stunts from safety, from technology. Like those guys are actually risking their lives to make this crazy torpedo love movie.
Yeah, if you watch this and we're like, wow, this crazy slapstick comedy, the physical comedy, love this. If you haven't watched, obviously like Chaplin and
Mhm.
Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd, there's so much for you to enjoy. And I'm pretty sure Buster Keaton probably almost died like hundreds of times making some of the movies that he did
Oh yeah.
between the General and Steamboat was Steamboat Bill Jr. Just wild. But this is a crazy little romp to enjoy. And the easy thing is it's right on YouTube. So you can just look it up and spend 20 minutes of watching this absolute absurdity, and you'll completely understand why we're both befuddled by how ridiculous this movie gets. But
It's out there.
yeah, but Chris, thank you so much for coming on and chatting some movies with me.
No, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me on again.
And thank all of you for listening. Make sure to like, comment, and share on this episode. What are some of your old slapstick physical comedy classes that you'd like to go back to? Are you a Chaplin fan, Keaton fan, Lloyd fan? And make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. The SPDM Crew Podcasting Network is ever expanding to the point where I'm having trouble keeping up with all these shows. But there's a little bit for everybody. And I mean it, a little bit for everybody. So make sure to follow us. And if you're interested in joining the crew and either want to start a show or come on as a guest like Chris did here, make sure to come out and reach out over on our website. And if you like our logo, check out HiFlyer Creative for all your digital marketing needs. But most importantly, thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Wasteland Watchlist here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.